God bless everyone. Today, I will share the powerful and chilling testimony of Grace Allison, a woman whose life was forever changed after she witnessed a terrifying revelation involving Joel Osteen in the afterlife, guided by Christ himself. In this story, we'll delve into the depths of her spiritual journey, uncover the shocking truths about her grace, the sins revealed, and the profound reasons behind what she saw. Now, I'm going to read Grace's letter exactly as she wrote it, so we can understand her sin and discover the path of Jesus that led her through this extraordinary experience. My name is Grace Allison. I'm 30 years old, and I live in Houston, a city I've called home my entire life. Growing up, I was surrounded by grace. It was the foundation of our family. My father, Samuel, worked tirelessly as a construction worker, but no matter how grueling his day had been, he never let a moment pass without connecting with God. Each morning, he would kneel in prayer, and in the evenings, no matter how exhausted he was, he'd open his Bible and immerse himself in God's Word. My mother, Evelyn, was a beacon of light for our community. She was known as a spiritual guide, offering encouragement, support, and unwavering hope to anyone who needed it. Their grace shaped my childhood and instilled in me a deep sense of devotion to God. Despite their example, my grace has been tested over the years. I have battled autoimmune diseases for much of my life, enduring pain and uncertainty that could have easily shaken my trust in God. But through it all, I held on, seeking comfort wherever I could. Joel Osteen's sermons became a source of positivity for me. His words often felt like a balm, offering temporary relief from my struggles. Yet, as comforting as his messages were, they didn't challenge me to look deeper. I didn't realize then that I was clinging to a surface-level understanding of grace, one that revolved around the promise of happiness and success rather than the true essence of God's will. Looking back, I see how much I was rooted in a belief system built on the fleeting comfort of feel-good sermons. I lived for the assurance that everything would work out if I stayed positive, but I never questioned the deeper meaning behind God's plans for me. I didn't understand how fragile my grace truly was, how easily it could waver in the face of real hardship. That realization was waiting for me just around the corner, and what I would encounter next would shatter everything I thought I knew about grace and the path to God. What happened that fateful day? I invite you to continue with me on this journey and find out. November 4th, 2023, started like any other day, but I carried a special sense of hope in my heart. I had woken up early, eager to attend a community service event in Houston. It was one of those crisp, sunny mornings that felt promising, as if the day was wrapped in God's blessing. My goal was simple yet fulfilling: to distribute supplies and uplift the spirits of those in need. I prayed before leaving, asking God to guide my steps and use me as a vessel of His love. As I drove, sunlight streamed through the car windows, warming me and filling me with a quiet joy. I felt connected to my purpose, completely unaware that this ordinary day would take an extraordinary and devastating turn. The crash came without warning. One moment, I was singing softly to the hymn playing on the radio. The next, the deafening sound of screeching tires and shattering glass consumed everything. A car in the opposite lane lost control and careened straight into mine. The impact was so violent that my world instantly turned black. I was weightless, detached from the chaos around me. It felt as if time itself had shattered along with the car. My body was still, but my soul was moving, drifting. A chilling sensation crept over me, and I realized with a sinking dread that I was slipping into a void, one that seemed endless, cold, and oppressively dark. In those moments, a terror unlike anything I had ever known gripped me. The darkness pressed against me, suffocating and relentless. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't see. It was as though I had been completely severed from God's love, left utterly alone in a desolate spiritual wasteland. Fear consumed me. Fear not just of the unknown, but of the horrifying possibility that I might never feel his presence again. My heart cried out, but the void swallowed every desperate whisper. I didn't know where I was or what was happening, but deep inside, I felt an undeniable truth. Something far greater than me was unfolding. And as I lingered in that suffocating emptiness, I couldn't help but wonder, was this truly the end? Or was it the beginning of something I could never have prepared for? When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the hospital. I wasn't anywhere I could recognize. Instead, I found myself in a nightmarish landscape that I could only describe as hell itself. The air was thick with the stench of burning sulfur, a suffocating mix of ash and heat. Rivers of molten lava flowed like veins through the scorched earth, each ripple glowing crimson and alive with an otherworldly fire. Grotesque figures loomed in the distance, demons, massive and twisted, their forms both terrifying and impossible to fully comprehend. Their eyes burned with a sinister light, as if they could see into the very core of my soul. The air vibrated with the anguished cries of countless voices, each one filled with a despair so profound that it seemed to echo endlessly. It was a place of torment beyond anything I had ever imagined, and I knew I didn't belong there. Yet I was there, trapped. As I moved through this horrifying realm, I saw them, corrupt religious leaders, the very people who had once used God's name for their selfish desires. They were bound and writhing in agony, their screams piercing through the inferno. Their sins, spoken as confessions, seemed to fuel the flames that consumed them. "I used God's word to enrich myself," one of them wailed as the fire grew hotter around him. The cries of their torment were unbearable, yet I couldn't look away. Each scream carried a weight that seemed to press against my chest, a reminder of how easily the truth can be twisted for personal gain. The sheer despair etched on their faces told me that there was no escape, no reprieve. Their suffering was eternal, and it forced me to confront a terrifying question. What about my own grace? Was I any different? Before I could process what I had seen, I felt a cold, soul-piercing grip on me. Demons emerged from the shadows, their grotesque claws dragging me into a dark dungeon. The walls seemed alive, pulsating with the cries of the tortured. Invisible chains bound me, and the demons began to mock me, questioning my devotion to God. "Was your grace real?" they sneered. "Or was it built on the promises of comfort and success?" Each lash of their fiery whips cut through my soul, exposing every weakness, every doubt. Just when I thought I could bear no more, a brilliant light shattered the darkness. It was a light so pure and powerful that it illuminated every corner of the dungeon, driving back the demons in an instant. In that radiant glow stood Jesus himself, his gaze filled with love, but also a wisdom that pierced straight to my heart. He didn't need to say much. His presence alone spoke of truth and mercy. But what he did say would change everything. He revealed the depth of my misguided grace and the dangers of following false teachings. His words were not just a rebuke, but an invitation to something greater. What he said next, though, would shake me to my very core, and it's something you'll have to hear for yourself. The atmosphere around me was suffocating, a crushing weight that pressed down on my soul. The walls felt alive, pulsing as if the very space was an extension of the torment within. They seemed to close in, tightening the already claustrophobic confines of the hellish realm. Rivers of lava snaked through the ground, their fiery heat licking at my skin and filling the air with a stench of burning sulfur. Every breath I took was thick and acrid, as if the air itself sought to choke me. The screams of countless souls reverberated endlessly, each cry sharper and more anguished than the last. It was a symphony of despair that seemed to penetrate my very being, leaving no room for hope or peace. Every detail, every sound, every scent was a vivid reminder that I was in a place completely devoid of God's presence. The demons were unlike anything I could have imagined, massive and grotesque in form. Their bodies were twisted, defying natural laws, their movements a terrifying blend of fluidity and jaggedness. Their presence exuded a cold energy that pierced deeper than any physical pain could. As they moved closer, I could feel their disdain, their mockery of my weakness, and most painfully, their ability to expose my deepest regrets. One of them reached out, and though it didn't touch me physically, I felt an unbearable chill spread through my soul. It was as though they were pulling at the fabric of my being, amplifying every fear, every failure, every moment of doubt I had ever experienced. The regret was overwhelming, a tide I couldn't escape, and I wondered if this was all there would ever be, a never-ending reflection of my own shortcomings. Then, in an instant, the darkness was shattered. A light, pure and radiant, poured into the space, driving back the oppressive shadows and the demons that thrived in them. The warmth of this light was unlike anything I had ever felt, washing over me with a clarity that lifted the crushing despair. My soul, which moments before had been drowning in fear, now felt an indescribable peace. And at the center of that light was Jesus. His presence was overwhelming, not because it was intimidating, but because it was so full of love and truth that it left no room for pretense. His gaze met mine, and in that moment, I felt every layer of spiritual fragility within me laid bare. The warmth of his light revealed not only the depths of my fear, but also the illusions I had built my grace upon. What he said next would not only confront me, but would forever reshape how I saw the path to God. As Jesus stood before me in the radiant light, his words carried a weight that pierced straight into my soul. He spoke with a calm authority, critiquing the teachings of Joel Osteen, exposing how they distorted the true essence of the gospel. "They have turned my message into a tool for their own gain," he said, his voice filled with both sorrow and resolve. He explained how these teachings, focused on personal happiness and worldly success, misled countless souls, diverting them from the path of God's will. His words were clear and unwavering, shedding light on the dangers of turning grace into a pursuit of material desires and shallow promises. In that moment, it was as if every illusion I had clung to shattered, leaving only the undeniable truth. I had built my grace on a foundation that was never meant to hold. I stood there, trembling, as the realization washed over me. My grace had been shallow, tethered to the comforting promises of prosperity and ease, rather than the call for self-denial and true devotion to God. Jesus' words revealed how I had been chasing comfort, not understanding the depth of sacrifice and surrender that true grace requires. It wasn't condemnation I felt from him. It was an invitation to go deeper, to leave behind the superficial grace I had settled for, and embrace the transformative power of genuine devotion. I saw my own reflection in his critique of modern teachings, and the weight of it was both humbling and freeing. In that moment, I vowed to walk a path that wasn't about seeking worldly success, but about aligning my heart entirely with God's purpose. When I woke up in the hospital, the physical pain of my injuries was nothing compared to the profound shift I felt in my soul. I knew that the accident was not just a brush with death, it was a spiritual awakening, a moment meant to strip away everything false and bring me face to face with God's truth. From that day forward, my life changed. I began studying the Bible with a hunger I had never known, allowing its words to guide me instead of the hollow promises of superficial teachings. I committed myself to serving my community, not to uplift moods with empty positivity, but to share God's authentic love and forgiveness. Each day, I strive to live with humility and sincerity, my grace, no longer about me, but about Him. But even as I took these steps, there was still so much to uncover, so many lessons I had yet to learn about the true depth of God's will, and those revelations would prove just as life-changing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this incredible journey. What do you think about the revelations, the challenges, and the grace tested in such a profound way. Share your insights, questions, or experiences in the comments below. Your voice matters, and I can't wait to read and respond to your reflections. Let's keep the conversation going.